This is what you call a giant CYA move. The President of the United States engaging in what seems to be a CYA move as his top generals come out and say that they told him you're going to need at least 2,500 troops in Afghanistan before the withdrawal is complete. My gosh, yet he ignored them. Better yet, he told the American public that no one told him that the generals never advised that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish, and my goodness, you know that the president has been slipping. Well, I should say just, fallen off a cliff in terms of all the poll data we have seen recently. How's this going to sit with Americans? After the president told Americans that no one had advised him, that the military had not advised him, generals had not advised him to keep troops there. I can tell you, I reported at the time that General Milley and others had told him. Sources told me that the military had said, keep the troops there. But Biden wanted everybody to think he didn't know better. I mean, this is unbelievable. Wait till you see Tuesday's hearings. Senator Tom Cotton questioning General Milley. Listen to this.
General Milley, it's your testimony that you recommended 2,500 troops approximately stay in Afghanistan?
As I've said many times before this committee and other committees, I don't share my personal recommendations to the president, but I can tell you my personal opinion and my assessment if that's what you want.
Yes, please.
Yes, my assessment was back in the fall of 20, and it remained consistent throughout, that we should keep a steady state of 2,500, and it could bounce up to 3,500, maybe something like that, in order to move toward a negotiated, gated solution.
Did you ever present that assessment personally to President Biden?
I don't discuss exactly what my conversations are with the sitting president in the Oval Office, but I can tell you what my personal opinion was, and I'm always candid.
General McKenzie, do you share that assessment?
Senator, I do share that assessment.
Did you ever present that opinion personally to President Biden?
Again, I'm not going to be able to comment on those executive discussions.
Did General Miller ever present that opinion personally to President Biden?
I think it would be best to ask him. I believe that his opinion was well heard.
Secretary Austin, President Biden last month in an interview with George Stephanopoulos said that no military leader advised him to leave a small troop presence in Afghanistan. Is that true?
Senator Cotton, I believe that, well, first of all, I know the president to be an honest and forthright man. And secondly...
It's a simple question, Secretary Austin. He said no senior military leader advised him to leave a small troop presence behind. Is that true or not? Did these officer and General Miller's recommendations get to the president personally?
Their input was received by the president and considered by the president, for sure. In terms of what they specifically recommended, Senator, as they just said, they're not going to provide what they recommended in confidence.
I mean, it sounds to me this.
Wow. I don't even entirely know how to react to something like that, because the only conclusion you can really draw is that the President of the United States, and by the way, I trust our members of the military, the President of the United States wanted Americans to think somehow that the military did not advise him of this. Again, I would go back to my reporting at the time, in which I was citing sources who said the problem was basically you had a State Department that was more noisy than the generals, right? And so Blinken, Secretary of State Blinken, who, if you ask me, ought to be fired. I mean, heads should roll. This is horrible what happened. There is no excuse for what went down, and General Milley and others were pointing out in the hearings on Tuesday that the United States position has been compromised. It most definitely has. It's been compromised because how can anyone trust us again? How can our allies think of us in the same way? How can the world think of us in the same way? They can't. We have been forever damaged by what happened in Afghanistan. And the saddest thing of all is that it was preventable. And if he had listened to the experts, we would have been in a much different place. So it's wrong. There's no excuse. And believe me, I don't think Americans are going to forget this. This may have happened early in the term. It's going to be remembered again and again and again at the ballot boxes, both in 22 and in 24. Because stupidity has consequences. And this was one stupid move. I'm not even going to give the excuse of a mistake, because these generals warned him. He chose to ignore the advice. I will point out that General Milley did address concerns about whether that was proper for him to be talking directly to his counterpart in China. He defended himself, saying that was within the scope of his job. I have said before, and I maintain, that it is concerning. It is concerning that a general would be trying to engage in diplomacy, and that is, after all, what one is to have a State Department for. That is why we elect a president. So I still question that. However, I have maintained from the beginning that the military told Joe Biden. And now, today, in those hearings, that's exactly what they confirmed. So what the heck was the president thinking? What the heck was the State Department thinking? Americans deserve answers. This has to go all the way to the top. We need to have a hearing with Blinken. And we need the president to answer these questions. Let me turn to the other big thing making the rounds on Capitol Hill. Everybody wants to blame everybody else. You see, the Democrats are saying the government's going to shut down. It's entirely the Republicans' fault. Republicans, however, are saying, look, the Dems are in charge. They're the ones that can't get anything done. And, they should just come to us with a clean resolution, a clean reconciliation bill, and we'll get the deal done. But that's not what they're doing, because they want to extend the debt ceiling like forever, right? Because, hey, why not? Why not print money? After all, if you're the government, if you're the United States of America, what does it matter? In fact, if you talk to the guy who is the Democrat in charge of the House Budget Committee, he'd really say, what does it matter? Because we are, after all, the United States of America is like the banker in Monopoly. I kid you not. This is actually what he said. I played it on yesterday's program. I got to play it again for you, because it's just unbelievable and gives you, I think, a tremendous insight into how some of these people in Washington, D.C. think. Listen.
We don't have to balance our checkbook. We are like the banker in Monopoly. We create the money, we hand out the money, everybody else plays the game with it. We are one of only about 10 countries in the world who are positioned to do it that way.
Oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please. Meanwhile, everybody's making the rounds. You've got the White House and all their talking heads. They've been making the rounds on TV. Oh, and somebody else is making the rounds on TV. He just happens to be the former president of the United States, who sat down on Tuesday with Good Morning America to say, you know what? The $3.5 trillion stimulus, it isn't really $3.5 trillion because it's spread out over a number of years. At least he's not saying zero, right? So many of the surrogates, they're all saying it's going to cost zero. In fact, not just the surrogates, the president himself tweeting out over the weekend that this would actually cost zero. Anyway, the former president, Barack Obama, he's out touting this thing, and his whole idea is that you just need to make the rich pay. There's lots of people that can pay for this, including now him, because now he considers himself one of those rich people. Anyway, look, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. They want you to think either one of two things. One, it's going to cost nothing, or two, it'll cost you literally nothing because it's just the rich that are going to pay for it all. Well, you don't have enough rich to really pay for it all, number one. They're already paying the majority in the taxes, federal taxes. The second thing is, this ultimately always hits everyday Americans. It always hits the middle class. It always hits the poor, because once you keep soaking the rich, well, they have less money to invest, and so they don't invest, and thus all those people suffer because they can't find jobs or they don't have as much growth in their wages. I mean, that's what we have seen. Not during the Trump years, by the way. I would point out, credit to his economic team, that during those years, after they put the tax cuts through, what did you see but record gains in median income, things that we had not seen like in forever. We hadn't seen a jump like that in median income, with the average family gaining almost $5,000 more a year, and that's adjusted for inflation. So that was very, very good news. But anyway, they want to either tell you it's just the rich, or actually none of this matters because it's actually going to cost $0. That's what the president said. That's what Jen Psaki said.
We're right in the weeds of it now on what the size of the package looks like. But I will also note, and we've done this a little bit over the past couple of days, but that this package, the reconciliation package, would cost $0.
Wow. Okay, so it's a big blame game, and it's a lot of voodoo math. Voodoo economics, as they would say, right? You got to be kidding me. I mean, look, I'm sorry, Americans are too smart for any of this. I want to turn right now to the rising threat in cybersecurity. Hard turn for you, but I want to just mention this company because it's a wonderful new company that I've found. They're a wonderful sponsor of this program, and they can help you protect your privacy, which is really, really important. You have companies out there where you think that you're getting free email, right? I've used this myself. I mean, until I found StartMail. And so Gmail, Yahoo, all of those companies, the problem is they're not really free because they're watching everything you do. They are reading your email. The algorithms are reading your email, and they're trying to figure out just exactly what you want served up. So there's the concern about sort of AI, if you would, automated systems going in and reading your emails. And then there's, of course, the concern about cyber hacking in general. And there was an interesting Wall Street Journal report just the other day talking about the rise in cyber attacks. And they're often now not holding your information hostage, but rather threatening to expose it in a way that could embarrass you and your company. So it's really important to keep your email private. It's important that it's encrypted, and this is what this company does. StartMail.com, they use their own servers, by the way, not Amazon, so that's important because they can stand on their own 2 feet. You don't have to worry about something like we saw with Parler. And the other important thing for you to know is it's totally seamless. If you want to transition your email to StartMail, you can do that in a very, very seamless way, so you don't have to start from scratch all over again. You can get unlimited, anonymous aliases, which matters, right? Because you're trying to protect your email addresses from all those spam attacks and all the phishing out there. So I want you to check this out. If you are using one of the more traditional email servers, then you are for sure in jeopardy. It's something that you got to pay for, right? Because nothing in life, as they say, is free, just like those other email servers. But I've worked out a great deal. You can get 50% off your first year if you go to startmail.com/Trish, startmail.com/Trish. Use the code word Trish. You'll get that 50% off. I've worked out a tremendous deal for you. I encourage you to do that because, look, it's important right now. Again, START, that's START. You see it there on the screen if you're watching this on video, startmail.com/Trish. The other thing I want to talk to you today about is the importance of the individual. You've heard me say this before. Individual responsibility matters. You know how much I care about all of us taking care of each other, ourselves, not relying, shall we say, on Uncle Joe to do all of that. And so it's important that you think about your future and your family's future. The reality is, as much as you want to start investing, and I encourage everybody to be investing in some way, shape, or form in a diversified portfolio, dollar cost average every single week. But before you get started with all of that, you need to make sure that you're checking your boxes, right? And this, to me, life insurance is just the cost of doing business. If you're going to be on this earth and you have anybody that is dependent on you, whether that be children or a spouse, and not just financially, right? Because there's an emotional component to this as well, where, even if someone is very successful and they've got a great job, if you were to pass away, think of what your loved one goes through. It's a tremendous, enormous amount of stress. I know a lot of people that have lost loved ones, and, it takes years. It can take many, 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 many years before, and still then, they never feel totally themselves. And so how hard is it for somebody to be going through the loss of a loved one while simultaneously having to deal with the financial stress? That's why I always say make sure that you have insurance. And there are very easy, very inexpensive ways to do this, primarily with this company, SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote.com, they canvas everything. They've got tremendous algorithms, so they go out and they shop, and they make sure that they partner up the best insurance company and the best policy with your particular criteria. And so it takes a vast amount of technology to be able to do this. This is what they are excellent at doing. So they can get you the best price. They can get you the best policy. I encourage you to do this today. They shop, you save. That's the idea, right? So that you're not going out there and calling every single insurance company. They do all that legwork for you. So go to StartMail.com. Check this out. Don't waste any more time. I mean, horrible stories, which I've told you about before. There's one in particular that I'm not going to get into just now. But look, the reality is, every single moment on this earth is precious. So don't waste any more time. Do go to StartMail.com today and check that out. One other story I want to get to right now is, I don't know if you saw the report in Gallup the other day. It was primarily talking about the president and his poor approval ratings, but it also dealt with the Supreme Court, which is struggling with its approval rating itself, in part because people, or primarily I should say, people just see it as too politicized of an institution. Politicized, right? I mean, when you think about what's happening right now with Texas, when you think about what Kavanaugh went through, when you think about Justice Barrett and all the hoopla surrounding her appointment, I mean, the American public, I think, is somewhat exhausted by it. And so they now are becoming quite negative on the Supreme Court, which is alarming because this is a very important institution and actually plays right into politicians' hands. Because if the other side decides that, well, that's too political an organization, then somehow the party in charge, which would be the Democrats right now, they think that they have the bandwidth to be able to say, okay, well, let's just pack the court so that we can make it less political and have more of our side represented. Well, that's not good, right? Because that effectively would ruin the sanctity of our court, which is why it's really important. There's a tremendous group, a law firm, the largest nonprofit group that is getting together to try and address this. First Liberty is their name. And they're taking this on in a very important, vital way right now. There's a petition that you can sign to become part of this at SupremeCoop.com, SupremeCoup.com, little play on words there. Obviously, given what we saw down in Venezuela with Hugo Chavez taking over the courts there, and hey, no other party has ever been able to come back in ever since. This is serious stuff. They are taking this at First Liberty very, very seriously. They want you to sign the petition. I encourage you to go to SupremeCoop.com. Get the word out. Do your part. There's some tremendous groups involved, including my friends at the Heritage Foundation, as well as Americans for Prosperity. These are people that care about protecting your freedom. And we don't want a political court. We absolutely do not. So go to SupremeCoop.com, sign that petition today. I want to go back for a moment to the Obama interview on ABC News on Good Morning America. This is very interesting because while he came out in support of the $3.5 trillion, by the way, just think for a second how much money that is. $3.5 trillion. I mean, his $800 billion is feeling really quaint. I remember when $800 billion was like, oh my gosh. Obama wants his $800 billion to nowhere. And it literally was to nowhere because it didn't do a darn thing to help this economy. We were barely growing at 2% annualized during the 8 years he was in charge. Anyway, he pushed the $3.5 trillion. He pushed the idea of tax hikes. And yet he came out and said that the border situation was unsustainable. I would absolutely agree with him on that. And it's become increasingly massively difficult just in the last sort of 4 weeks alone, as we're dealing now with all the Haitians that are coming into this country. They're in Del Rio, Texas, and there's seemingly no real ability to control any of this. He said, and I quote, "We are a nation state. We have borders. The idea of open borders is unsustainable." That's President Barack Obama. Who knew? I'd be agreeing with Barack Obama, but you know what? This is not radical. For goodness sakes. I mean, it used to be that Democrats actually were aligned on this, they agreed. It was Dianne Feinstein who famously said, we don't need and we cannot be the welfare party for Mexico. This was like 20 years ago. Wow, how times have changed, right? Again, this is feeling quaint. I mean, his $800 billion feels quaint compared to the $3.5 trillion. Oh, by the way, plus the other $1 and change trillion. And this comment almost feels quaint. It's very divorced from where the left is currently going. But it's spot on. I mean, we are a nation. I'm sorry. We are still a nation. And we need to have borders. And that shouldn't be controversial. So you can't just open it up and say, hey, come on, we're going to take care of everyone. As much as we would like to, right? Americans are very altruistic people. But we need to have some law and order when it comes to our borders. So I thought that was an important point that he made. And I encourage you to look some more on my website, TrishIntel.store, for more information about that, because we covered that story. We covered all these stories that you're hearing about here today. We have a regular news flow for you there. My team working diligently and hard to get all of those stories out to you. I want to encourage you to go to TrishIntel.com and sign up for my newsletter. If you do that, you will get this podcast directly delivered to you daily. I also want you right now, if you can, to go to Apple iTunes and download The Trish Regan Show. You can do the same thing on Spotify. It's important that we get the word out, that your voice is heard, that my voice is heard. So spread the word. I am here, and I am championing truth and freedom. It's great to have you listening. I'll see you back here tomorrow.